Hello and welcome to the Long Couch. My name's Carl. I'm joined
My name is
tonight by
Mel.
Mel. Whoa,
Yeah, I
whoa,
introduced
Mel.
myself this time.
Don't butt in on me like that. I'm trying to do
Okay,
the
my bad, my
introduction.
bad. Here, you tell them all about me, and then I'll just kind of like stare at the camera.
I'm joined by Mel. Now you speak.
Hi, that's me. I'm Mel. Mel
Very good.
Mige, short for Mel Mige. People have mispronounced it pretty wrong my entire life. I've gotten Mel Mige, Mel Mige. Someone said Mel Mige once. Um,
That's exotic.
yeah, it is. It is. You should hear what Mel Mige is short for. I'm not gonna say it. It's a secret between me and my family. Do you remember what it is? I feel like I told
Yes,
you years ago.
it's Melamachi.
Yes, it's short for Melamachi.
But when I
That's
first
wow.
discovered you, I definitely thought it was Melmage.
Melmage, I get that one a lot.
And I thought this Melmage guy, he makes some pretty quirky music. I thought you would be like way more of a shy, introverted weirdo guy, just from
Yeah,
hearing your music.
I mean, definitely, especially at the time, considering I definitely leaned more heavily into a bit more of a melodramatic emo side of things at that point in my life.
I was listening
Now
to
I'm,
like Paint and like I want to go outside and skate,
oh, that's a classic.
and I thought like, well, this hits different. I haven't heard anything
This is
like this
gonna be a
before.
weird guy.
And whoever makes this like must be like just a weird artistic kind
Yeah,
of guy.
total fucking basement dweller,
Which
dude.
I mean, you are a weird artistic kind of guy, but you're way more
Yeah,
outgoing and like outwardly presenting than I would have ever suspected.
it surprises. You're not the only one surprised by it, I would say.
That's why you're perfect for this show.
Yes.
Good contrast.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to be discussing horror movie cliches. So Mel, how often are you watching horror movies when you get the chance?
Uh, Minimum once a week.
Once a week. So a lot of your
Yes.
movie consumption is horror movies, correct?
Yes.
Would you say that's like the top genre that you watch?
Favorite is a strong word, but in terms of like in terms of frequency, yeah, I definitely watch horror movies more than anything else.
Okay, I'm in the same boat. If I had to like, categorize all the movies I've ever seen by genre, I think horror movies would be the biggest chunk of that.
Yeah, it's funny because I watch them more than anything else, but horror movies also have one of the worst good to bad movie ratios of any genre I've ever
That is
seen.
true. We've both seen a lot of bad ones, I'm sure.
Yes.
So today we're going to be discussing cliches, things that happen so often in horror movies that they've totally lost all meaning. So
Yeah,
let's get to
I'm excited.
the definition of a cliche. It's an element of artistic work, a saying, or an idea that has become overused to the point of losing its original meaning or effect. So there are plenty of fish in the sea would be a cliche saying, or action movie heroes walking away from explosions in slow motion would be, a movie cliche, something that's totally cliched in action movies.
Yes.
Might have been cool the first couple times it was done, but now it's been done so many times that it just has no more meaning and it just
Yep.
loses all of the coolness that it once had.
I honestly see in terms of action movie hero walking away from explosion in slow motion. I honestly, it's become such a overtly used cliche that I actually see it parodied more than I see the actual thing anymore.
Right.
Tons of people parody it in comedy movies, and they even parody it in action movies, and even in its home genre. Whenever it happens, it's kind of played as a bit of like a sort of tongue in cheek, like we know what we're doing. We know that we're doing the thing.
Yeah, a lot of cliches are just so well known that people won't even do them with a straight face anymore.
No, you can't. It's kind of hard to.
And Mel, you and I'm sure, have seen so many horror movies that we've seen a lot of these things done over and over and over again to where they're not even scary anymore.
See, that's the thing is that maybe this is not a popular opinion, but I don't really watch horror movies to be scared. It sounds a little oxymoronic, I know. Um but I don't watch horror movies to be scared. I appreciate and enjoy the genre and a lot of the genre's peaks, but I don't I don't get scared by horror movies.
Right. I mean, neither do I. I
Big
usually
tough
watch
guy.
them just for, the vibes for one, or just to see something totally out of left field that is like
Yeah.
shocking to me. And when movies fall into traps of just overused cliches, I'm not going to get shocked by anything. I'm not going to see
Yeah.
anything I haven't seen before. I'm going to be guessing what's coming the entire time, unless they subvert my expectations, which we'll get to later. But I'm sure we've seen a lot of these things just totally happen over and over again in movies, and they lose all of their value, and general audiences are not going to be scared by them, or, veterans of horror movies are not even going to be intrigued by them. They're just totally boring.
Yeah, pretty much.
So let's get to the first one. This is always running upstairs when chased. This is definitely more of like a slasher cliche, but it seems
For sure.
like potential victims are always running upstairs. Why is that?
You know what? I'll kind of give some credibility to this trope. First of all, Halloween started a lot of these cliches. Unknowingly, it's kind of like this sort of domino effect. I didn't mean to, but I will say, I think as a casual viewer, you're watching somebody make an incredibly fucking dumb decision, and you're like, wow, what an imbecile, what a moron, what a doofus, what a Neanderthal. I would never do such a thing. Me in that situation, I'm smart. I'm
Right.
logical. I'm calm, cool, and calculated. And so, of course, running upstairs away from, a predator, somebody chasing you, a monster, it's super counterintuitive to an escape plan. But putting myself in these people's positions, let's say that I am running from Michael Myers. In my head, if I believe that I cannot make a good exit out of the house, which I feel like you should be able to, running upstairs is like, in my mind, that is away from where they are. So it's almost like, for a brief moment, I can get a little bit further away than as if I was downstairs.
Mhm.
So I understand that in a moment of panic, you are not thinking rationally. I get that. So I'll kind of give a little bit of leeway to this trope. But it is pretty fucking stupid, though.
Right. This trope has
Don't
to
do it.
occur because if people make good decisions, there would be no movie.
Yes,
I mean, Michael Myers
do
invades
think
your
that it
home
is.
and you run out the back door, you get away. But you run upstairs and you are trapped.
Yeah, exactly. See, it is the result of situational negligence, but I'm tired of seeing it, actually.
Right. I mean, the movies have to kind of sell me on the idea that there was no alternative exit. The only choice is to go upstairs.
I need that sense of urgency. Like, I need it to be believable.
Because when you go upstairs, you're basically just putting yourself at more of a disadvantage because now you're a story off the ground. So you can't escape through a window as easily.
Yeah.
And there are no doors leading outside and upstairs. I mean, unless you have like a fire escape or whatever. But, most homes do not. So
No.
you're definitely screwing yourself. And I've seen a lot of people perish upstairs because, I mean, they're under the impression that, Michael Myers maybe can't climb stairs or will take him very long because he's probably doing one step at a time.
Yeah, he's not a... He
just
takes
for
his
the
time.
effect.
He's not a fast guy.
Right. Next up, we've got falling down and crawling instead of getting up and running away.
This one is kind of the same explanation, but way less forgivable. Like, I feel like it happens to such an egregious effect. I just don't believe it. Even if you're like in a pure state of panic, I just do not believe that this is how normal
panic and
act.
adrenaline that makes your legs stop working? Is there science
See, that's the
behind
thing.
this?
I don't believe that.
It's one thing if you're injured. If you got stabbed in the leg, or you got shot, or what have you, or your ankle's broken, then you can crawl.
Yes.
But in many cases, it would take less time to just get back up on your feet than, they're trying to crawl across the floor at a snail's pace. You're not making any progress there. But it's much more dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's more dramatic, but also, once again, like, I need it. I'm cool with some wacky, wild shit happening in a horror movie. Horror movies by nature, or I mean, I guess more paranormal oriented ones by nature are not always rooted in reality. So I'm okay with a decent amount of suspension of disbelief from my viewing experience. But like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing this? Why are you crawling? Just get up. Like you said, it takes more time to crawl than if you just took a second to get up, stand on your feet, and then start running. You're going to make up for that lost time.
Next up is going to investigate the most terrifying noise one could ever hear while alone. So this is some straight up white people shit right here.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, and a lot of this stuff is just white people shit.
Part of our culture.
Yeah.
Is going and investigating terrifying noises while alone.
Making bad decisions is a big part of my identity as a white person.
Yes.
So, I mean, basically, the potential victim is home alone, the lights are out, and they hear a little something, a little scratch at the door. And what do? Rather than try to avoid it because, some suspicious stuff has already happened. Now's the time to just vacate the premises. They just have to know.
I've got a theory. The theory that I just now came up with.
Yes.
But the joke is that white people will, on their own, isolated from, their family, the rest of the group, whatever, on their own will go in and investigate these strange and unexplained noises. They will go investigate by themselves, right? And the joke is that it's white people. Any other race would say, fuck that, there's no way that I'm doing that. Eddie Murphy's got where, he says white people investigate, but, the second black people hear noise. It's like, well, what a shame, nice home. And then they leave. And so here's my theory. And this ties in to the white American zeitgeist that has dominated this country for far too long. White people go and investigate noises that are potentially harmful or dangerous because their sense of urgency and self-preservation is at a lower level because they have been systematically supported to be privileged and to be in consistently less danger.
Wow.
Than maybe another race would experience in America. White people tend to be in less danger. Like, for example, not a lot of white people are inherently scared of being pulled over by a police officer, right?
Right.
We've all heard, white teenage boy cries and gets out of a speeding ticket, whatever. So they, in this country, feel a much lower sense of urgency and danger in events that maybe, other people of other races would feel. So that's why white people go investigate these noises in horror movies, is because they're in that mindset. Well, nothing could happen to me. Golly gee. Let's go see what that strange noise in the basement was. And then they get fucking murdered. But me, I'm breaking that trend.
Yeah, you don't.
If I hear a noise, if I'm alone at night, and so I've just been like ranting. But if I'm alone at night and I hear a noise that is unexplained and potentially harmful, I'm grabbing my girlfriend, I'm grabbing my cats, I'm grabbing my lizard, and I'm leaving.
You won't assume that it could just be my cat. Let me go check it out.
Here's the thing, though. If I were to check it out, I would do so with an abundance of caution.
Right.
Because I feel like walking slowly and having your shoulders a little higher up than normal, that's not caution.
Mm-hmm. But it's good for suspense.
Very good for suspense, yeah.
I've seen people, set down the weapon and go over and slowly check out whatever it is that was making that noise.
Yeah, why would you put it down?
That's the optimal time of when you need it. All right, next
I got
up.
a pair of nunchucks. So, all I'm saying.
You're going to be holding on to those things if you hear
I keep them beside my bed, under my nightstand.
Next up is your cell phone dying or having no reception at the most inopportune moment. So modern movies have had to find ways to eliminate cell phones because they would kind of just be a quick fix to a lot of these situations. So it's always like there's a jammer, or I have no service out here in the boonies, or my battery's dead.
Tactical EMP.
Yeah. Or they have some scene earlier of them leaving their phone in the car or dropping it somewhere. And now in their time of need, they don't have it.
This one gets less believable with time. Because there's always going to be there's always going to be, in my mind, an annoyance, but also believability to a lack of cell service. A lot of horror movies take place in secluded, wooded areas. Maybe they're camping and there's a monster, like Friday the 13th or whatever. So it's annoying, but it's believable to not have self-service. I mean, I live in West Virginia. There are so many places that I go to frequently that don't have self-service.
Yeah.
So I get it. A lot of wooded areas, no matter what carrier or provider you have, a lot of wooded areas aren't going to have good service. So that I do get. Your cell phone dying, I think most people are attached enough to their phones to have them charged before leaving the house, but also kind of believable. This is, in my mind, one of the most annoying horror movie tropes. I think that a lot of the time it's shoehorned in to create to create false conflict or but once again, this is so far, this is the most believable trope. This is the most believable trope, because as prepared as we are and as attached we are to our phones, this one makes sense. I get it.
Right, people's phones die.
Yeah, it happens.
I mean, my phone hasn't died in years. I charge it every night. I use it like a normal person, and I've always got to charge.
Well, good for you, first of all.
Checkmate.
I just now, 2 weeks ago, I got the iPhone 15 Pro Max, right? It's the first phone. It's the first new phone that I've gotten in 5-6 years, maybe. And my previous phone, which I actually still have, it's a piece of shit. It sucks. I mean, it probably is an iPhone 10, and it probably had 2 hours max of battery life. It wouldn't properly charge. It was constantly bugging out. It was a bad fucking phone. And if we're operating under the assumption that most people cannot afford a new phone every year, I waited 5 years to get one, a lot of people's phones just kind of fucking suck, especially if they have iPhones.
Well, right, as these phones get older, their batteries get worse, and that's especially prevalent with iPhones.
Yes.
So all the people in these horror movies, they're using 5-year-old iPhones that get 2 hours of battery life, and then suddenly when horror strikes, oh no, my phone's dead.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is more believable than tripping while running from an adversary and then just not getting up, just continuing to crawl away. How does that make any sense?
Right.
Phone dying makes so much sense.
Right, your phone dies all the time. Well, they got to set more movies in the early 2000s then, right? To eliminate
honestly,
this.
I say go far. I go further back.
Right. If you want to get rid of the cell phone issue entirely, go way further
rotary
back.
Phones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that. I think that horror movies these days are too obsessed with modernity.
We should embrace
for
tradition.
Example, yeah, I mean, one of the most acclaimed horror movies of recent time is The Witch. That shit takes place in the 1600s.
Right. No cell phone issue there.
Yeah, not at all. You can't. I mean, nothing. I mean, what, you're gonna do a real quick carrier pigeon? No. You gotta write the letter. You gotta tie it around its ankle. You gotta throw it off. Hope to God it gets home. All I'm saying, stop making horror movies that are set in 2020. You know what I mean? It was fun for a year.
Next up, we've got serial killers slowly walking and somehow catching up with a sprinting victim. So seeing slashers run, doesn't that kind of seem a little disarming? I mean,
yeah, it's a little goofy.
So here on screen, we do have Ghostface, and I just watched Scream 2 for the first time last night, actually. And in that movie, in
Congrats.
all the Scream movies, I presume, Ghostface does run, because Ghostface is just like a normal dude in every movie, or a woman sometimes.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
Ghostface
more
trips up on furniture, and he's stumbling and stuff, which kind of...
See, I love that.
Yeah, it kind of demystifies Ghostface. He's not like The Shape, or like a supernatural killer. He's like a dude with a knife, which is scary, in a way, but you are constantly reminded that Ghostface is a human underneath there, because he sprints, and he stumbles, and he kind of messes up, and it fails to open doors, and stuff like that.
I would say this has become a bit of a trope, for sure. I do love Ghostface's sort of occasional lack of coordination, but this started with Michael Myers. Like I said, a lot of these tropes did start with Michael Myers.
Hmm.
But that is one of my favorite qualities about Michael Myers, is because Michael Myers is like the embodiment of evil, yes, but he is a person, right? But the slow moving walk, the lack of expression, the mask, like all of these things that go towards dehumanizing him, taking away any sort of personality that he might have or had, once had, and turning him into this monster. Like, I like that. I don't like when other people do it as much, because I think that it, like, the whole point of this, it becomes tropey. But like Michael Myers, like never having to run, being this very dehumanized, sort of like omnipotent being, like that's why he's scary.
Right, but I feel like if you saw Michael Myers sprinting at you, it'd definitely be threatening, but you would suddenly be reminded that he's just a human.
He's a human. I mean,
And
if I
he's
saw Michael
not-
Myers doing like a light jog,
Like-
like I don't even think I'd run away.
Right.
I mean, I could take him. This is not a threat.
I mean, the filmmakers understood that making a killer slowly and deliberately walk towards a victim is much, much scarier in the medium of
they're in
film.
control.
Right, they have like a confidence about them that they don't even need to run.
Exactly.
The victim can run away from them, but they will. It's kind of like a metaphorical, the inevitability of death kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like people run away
100%.
screaming from it, but it just keeps approaching at its same rate, and eventually it will catch up to you and stab you.
Yes. I do like the inverse, when like the scary aspect of a character. Like, for example, my mom up and down claims that the scariest horror movie of all time is Silence of the Lambs. And her reasoning for that being the scariest horror movie is that it could very much happen in real life. Anything grounded in reality is what she finds the scariest. And so Hannibal Lecter is like so conversational, so human, so like you're able to psychoanalyze him on such a deep level that like that's why he's scary.
Oh, but he's
It's
also
'cause he
very,
can-
very unhuman.
Well, he's very calculated, but like the fact that the scary thing about him is his personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so and he could be a real person. Michael Myers is like very much could be a real person, but there's also that supernatural element to Michael Myers where he's a little unkillable, and he kind of like is able to get around at, impossible speeds. But Hannibal Lecter, it's like that could be a real fucking guy. Like easy. There is probably a guy out there that's pretty similar to Hannibal.
But think about this. The reason that Hannibal Lecter seems so unhuman is partially because we never see him blink on screen. And I would say that's
great.
That's similar to never seeing Michael Myers sprint.
Yeah, but we see Hannibal, like we see him converse. We see him react.
Right, we get
to
a lot of
things.
FaceTime with him, but he doesn't
Yeah.
He's not quite human still.
And there's parts. They're very infrequent, to be fair, but there's parts when Clarice, there's parts where Clarice is talking to Hannibal, and like for a brief moment, like you see annoyance in Hannibal. You see that he's kind of like he's very all-knowing, but there's parts where he slips up a little bit in this like very cold, analytical, like psychologist facade that he's playing with Clarice. And so you don't feel like Michael Myers, you feel like he's invincible. You don't feel like Hannibal is invincible.
Okay, next up. Getting annoyed at one's dog or cat when they suddenly start freaking out instead of trusting their sense of imminent danger. This article says it's a well-known fact that animals will pick on something eerie long before we do. Is that a well-known fact?
That is true. I've known that since I was a young child, a young boy, a young lass in grade school. And a lass is girl, young lad in grade school.
So when your cat gets the zoomies at 11 p.m., you assume that there's something evil going on then?
I assume evil is a strong word, to be fair. But listen, I have 3 cats, right? And we have our occasional differences, but I do trust them. I trust their judgment. And I trust that, the burden of technology has stripped away any sort of natural primitive instinct that I have, right? But those cats, they're just balls. They're furry balls of instinct. I trust them. If my cats are like, hey, something is fucking wrong.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, okay, tell me more. I believe you.
So if your cat is like staring off alertly into the distance, you think
He
there's
does
something
that
there
often.
that I'm not seeing.
Yes, yeah. I'm like, he know, maybe not even like a supernatural thing always, but it's just like he knows something, and I know that he does not have an articulate, language oriented way to communicate that with me. I know that there is a language barrier between me and my cat. I understand that, but I trust him.
You trust your cat to alert you of any
Yeah.
danger?
Yes. If my cat came into my bedroom at like 1 a.m., just absolutely losing his fucking mind, sure, I'd probably laugh at first because cats are funny when they're, fucking freaking out, running all over the place. But after that initial reaction has subsided and he was continuing to freak out in a way that I was not familiar with. Now, if it was one of his usual like zoomy things, and it's like, oh, he's just got the zoomies.
Uh-huh.
But if my cat is acting in a way that I'm not used to him acting, I'm immediately like, something is wrong. Like something is going on that I need to remedy.
And then you go by yourself to go investigate the source of
Yeah,
this activity.
And then I set down my nunchucks as I'm entering the room that the noise took place in.
So I'm in the opposite camp because my cat is just fucking stupid. So I don't trust his ass for anything. Like if there was some kind of dangerous entity, he'd probably just go over and like start rubbing on it. He's very friendly.
I mean,
he doesn't
it's in his
perceive
name.
danger at all. And
You kind of set him up with the name, though.
Lucifer.
Yeah, you kind of set him up to be, to kind of be in bed with evil a little bit.
I mean, he's not evil. I mean, he scratches the couch sometime, but that's
My
probably
bad.
the most
He's just
evil thing
stupid.
that he does.
As you've put, he's just dumb as shit.
He's very stupid. If he sees a little piece of dust in the air or a bug, he will start eyeing it up like it's his enemy, and he will just zoom all over the place for no good reason. He's very
valid.
talkative, and he's meowing all the time to the point where you can't even pay that any mind. So
Yeah.
I don't trust him. Maybe if you have a certain perceptive kind of cat, they can sense spirits, but I wouldn't trust my cat to do so.
I would not necessarily call any of my cats perceptive. That would be a really generous description of their behavior.
I mean, cats have very sensitive hearing and vision. I would say they're very perceptive.
I don't think my cats put it to use, though.
No?
Like, one of my cats is kind of like an iPad baby. Like, he's got the attention span of a rock. And then my third cat, my lady cat, Chamomile, she does not give a shit about anything. She's not dumb. She just doesn't care.
Mm.
She's apathetic.
Well, maybe we're speaking from a place of ignorance, and maybe this is more of a dog thing.
I think it's all animals, because horses also freak out at, like, ghosts and ghouls and stuff.
Right, in movies. Or
Yeah,
saying...
so I think. Well, I mean, no, cats are like, in all movies all the time. Cats are like arching their backs, their hair stands up, and they hiss at like a shadow or some shit. I think cats also sort of have this sort of supernatural cognition.
Is it wrong of people in movies to just assume that's
Dismiss
normal cat behavior and not a sign of anything dangerous?
Yes, because they're always like, he's normally so nice. Yeah.
Or you move into a new house with your dog.
You're saying it out loud.
Your dog starts acting all weird and starts barking at nothing, or he refuses to set foot inside the house. What's
like
wrong?
in the Conjuring movie, the dog straight up gets fucking murdered by these ghouls.
Well, I guess he wasn't perceptive enough.
Yeah, it's the dog's fault. It's fucking idiot. But that's the thing. My cats, as silly as they can be, are so nice. My cats are so nice. So if my cat like arched its back, hair sticking straight up, and was like hissing like crazy, I'd be like, something is fucking wrong.
There's some
because that is
shit
not
going
how
on
my
here.
cat. That is not how my cat acts, and I'm going to recognize that as a normal fucking person to be like, something's wrong because my cat does not act like that.
Next up, hanky panky is the death sentence. Apparently this website was too afraid to say sex. But yes, if you have sex in a horror movie, you will more than likely die.
I don't feel like I see this one a lot anymore. I feel like this is very much a 90s, 2000s thing. I don't really see this in a lot of horror movies. But I don't really see a lot of... I think this trope is kind of dying down a little bit, thankfully.
Is there less sex in horror movies in general, or is there just less sex leading to death?
I think there is probably the same amount of sex, but I think there is a lesser amount of sex that sort of like unawareness while having sex leading to death, I think there's less of that.
I have a couple kind of theories about this. Either one is the filmmakers are saying they're just being Puritan about sex. And they're saying
it's like a cautionary
this
tale.
Is a cautionary tale, yeah. I mean, look at these sick people, young,
look at these unmarried people having sex.
Yeah, and now they will be punished because they stepped out of line against our moral standards.
Never even thought about that. You might be onto something.
That could be a conscious message by the filmmakers. Or, probably more likely, the filmmakers want to show sex in their movie because that's exciting. But they also know it's a slasher movie and people have to die. So why not combine the two? Why not have a hot couple, have a nice sex scene, and
then tie
please
it into
the audience, and then please the audience even more by having them get killed.
Well, you know what to say, Carl. Sex sells.
Right. And murder also sells.
Sex and murder. The two most popular products and imports from America.
Right. You probably won't see murder in like a Hardee's commercial, though.
No. But that'd be really cool if I did. That'd be cool if they did that.
Next up, based on a true story is a lie.
This one is just annoying. Like, have you seen the second Conjuring movie?
Yes.
Yeah, none of that shit happened.
That one's from the Enfield Poltergeist, am I correct?
Yeah, and the thing is, in the movie, it's like, we're gonna stick around and find out if your daughter is possessed. We are gonna, fucking talk to the crooked man.
So use that as an example of, like, this is bullshit, but, like, that's one of the most documented cases. And a lot of things that happened in that movie actually happened.
But in real life, Ed and Lorraine Warren left. They didn't even stick around.
Right. That Warren stuff in movies is total bullshit. Like, I get that.
That's the part I'm complaining about.
Right, but they have the name recognition, so they always use them as, like, they were here the whole time, and they solved the whole thing. I get that part. It's totally bullshit. They do that in so many movies like Amityville and all that. But, yeah, I mean, the Enfield one in particular, that's one that is actually, I would say, based on a true story. Like, the events that they show in that movie are based on things that actually happened. Now, I'm not saying that it's actually haunted, but things occurred.
Yeah, like, I've seen the video of the girl talking, of, like, the old man that died, like, talking through the little girl. Like, in terms of the paranormal activity, definitely very well documented, but, like, the Warrens just weren't fucking there. Mm-hmm. They showed up, they're like, we can't do anything, there's not enough evidence, and then they left. Like, have you seen Mama?
No, but is that based on a true story?
I don't want to be wrong, because it might not be, but I'm pretty sure they said that at the beginning, and it's like, no, it fucking wasn't.
That's like with the two girls that come out of the woods, and they kind of reincorporate them into society, and they keep saying, like, oh, my mama was out in the forest and now she's gonna come protect me, and then people start dying around them.
Yeah, the spirit like is attached to them.
So
that's just not true.
But the based on the true story part is based on what? That at some point they said that?
I mean, I believe that two little girls got lost in the woods and were found in kind of like a half semi-feral state. But that's the only part of that entire story that I would, because I mean, after that, it's just not true.
There are so many movies where they take just total hearsay and say this is based on a true story, which I guess it's based on a series of things that somebody said at some point, and then we've added on to it.
All right, there's a Reddit thread about Mama reflecting a real life story, but I don't actually know if I don't know if it boasts the credibility and prestige of being based on a real life story.
I always told myself if I did a podcast, I would want a third person on hand to be the fact checker. So every time somebody said something that they were unsure about, or like what's that actor's name again? Oh, I can't remember. There'd be a third person who would be like searching that, and they'd chime in and be like, oh, it's Tom Hanks.
I'm gonna have Kenzie come in and just like sit like 2 feet off camera, and I'm gonna ask her every time we don't know something, be like, Kenzie, Google this real quick.
Yeah, she needs to be gets well trained enough where as soon as we start saying something bullshit, she's gonna start verifying it and butting in.
Yeah, like she knows to look it up before we even ask. It's just like, Kenzie, was Mama based on a true story? And then she can tell me yes or no. I mean, there's been 100 movies based off of the Amityville killings,
which has been like super thoroughly debunked. The haunting, at least.
Yeah, like, come on. Like, the dude, like, whatever. I don't care. Fuck it, who cares? Based on a true story. Sure. So, okay. Yeah, let's go with that.
I mean, legally, yeah, you can say based on a true story. You got
like
a
I said,
lot of
based
leeway
on a
in that
true story
that
about
sentence.
about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know if this is what you anticipated, but I feel like a lot of this podcast is me complaining.
No, that's fine. Well, I'll be sure to give you lots more to complain about in the future.
Oh, I'm begging you. It really favorite part of my day, favorite part of my week, really is when I get on here and I complain to you about things that just do not matter. Like, based on a true story that has no weight on my life, but I'm gonna get on here and act like it does.
Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to criticize terrible, overused horror movie cliches, like the next one, the inconsistent strength of a killer. So this is like in movies where in one scene the killer rips somebody apart in seconds without hesitation, and then in the next scene the protagonist has such high plot armor that they can hardly do anything to them, and it's just totally unbelievable.
I think Pennywise is a pretty good example for this. The movie version of Pennywise is super inconsistent in what he is capable of doing.
So I pulled this one specifically so that I could defend Pennywise. I'm a big Stephen King fan. I have this tattoo from the movie. And I hear so often about Pennywise being like a total weak-ass bitch, and people criticizing him for that.
He's literally like a cosmic being.
Sure, but exactly, and that's what people say, like, oh, he's like an alien or some kind of eldritch horror, and then at the end of the movie, he gets defeated by a bunch of children. Like, what the fuck's up with that?
I'm okay with that. I think that, like, I think that Pennywise is a good character. I think he's probably better represented in the book, but how strong actually is he?
Well, I would say he's not very strong.
Yeah.
And I think the consistency is there because Pennywise is like a metaphor for childhood trauma. And the whole allegory of the book is that by overcoming that and not fearing it, not letting it control you, it loses all of its power.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense because when you watch the movies, it's not like Pennywise is ever implied to have these great feats of strength.
But he's like, he can teleport, he's like omnipotent, he can read your mind, he can psychically control people.
But he also murders children.
Right, he targets children because they're easy prey.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
fair, me too. I guess I would do the same thing if I was a cosmic entity that required, the killing of people to survive.
Yeah, because for the most part, he needs people to be afraid of him in order to chow down on them. So he doesn't often kill adults so much, at least not directly one-on-one, because most adults wouldn't really be quite so afraid of him.
I'd scrap with him, bro. Honestly, I could take him.
Right, you might actually you might just be like, oh, this is just some kind of creepy clown guy. I don't know.
I'm not scared of clowns in any capacity.
And there are a lot of people who are not.
I get that he can shapeshift. I get that Pennywise isn't a clown, Mm-hmm. Pennywise is really kind of like this weird spider thing. Purely clown, I could take him easy. I'd fucking give him the 1-2 step on his grave and then move on with my day.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what form Pennywise takes as long as you're not scared of him.
Yeah, but to be fair, if this was in terms of the fictional town of Derry, and I did not know that his whole sort of his Achilles heel was if that I'm not scared of him, he can't really hurt me. If I didn't know that shit, he'd probably take me out pretty quickly. He would just transform into. I don't know. 20-foot tall spiders probably scare me. I've never encountered one, but I would imagine that it's a frightful experience. So he'd probably win. I'd probably get my ass handed to me.
It might be a case of if you even attempt to fight back, then you could probably win because that's what the kids do at the end of the movie.
Literal children beat him. So I feel like I would have a decent chance.
If you can overcome your fear enough to actually strike back against him, it seems like he doesn't really stand much of a chance. If you're not quaking in your boots the whole time. Yeah,
actually, as long as you just do anything that kind of shows some air of confidence or bravery, it's that's the beginning of his downfall.
Yeah, it just goes to show that Pennywise is not really that powerful, as powerful as people give him credit for. And then people turn around and criticize him for being a weak-ass bitch in some parts. But I think it's consistent.
Okay. Pennywise is a good character, either way.
Well, he's great, yeah. And you know what? Fuck all the haters who hate the new reboot movies and think Bill Skarsgård is trash.
Oh, I think they're fine.
I think they're
People
great.
think Bill Skarsgård's trash?
A lot of people hate him. They
Bill
compare him.
Skarsgård's Pennywise is better than Tim Curry's.
Well, that's kind of bold. Tim Curry is great, but he's like the only good thing about those movies.
Well, that's the thing is I'm not dissing Tim Curry, but Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise, which to be fair is much due in part to the production team and the special effects teams of the movie. I mean, his Pennywise is just better. I think it's a lot more enjoyable. I get that it plays much more into monster than clown, but I mean, his acting is phenomenal.
Right. I mean, I like them both, but I think most people and myself would agree that Tim Curry is even better. But those old It movies are just, they do not hold up other than him.
Yeah.
So as movies, the new ones
fair,
are definitely way better. Well, that's our review of the It movies. Let's move on to creepy children.
I'm okay with this one.
Horror movies have a way of subverting things that are not scary and suddenly making them scary to the point where now in real life, these things are scary. Children being one of them.
Yeah, I think that most people would generally agree that children are one of the paragons of innocence.
Like if I ask you what your top 10 fears are, I don't think anyone's going to say, definitely children. Like a 5-year-old, oh shit, get that away from me, Because in real life, obviously kids are not scary.
No, I could,
with a few exceptions.
I could beat a child in a fight. I could beat probably multiple children in a fight.
Well, I'm not saying that kids are not threatening, but kids are not scary even. Like you don't just see a kid and feel like, shiver down my spine.
I don't know, but
there's a child over there.
When kids, I get why they're so commonly used, because when kids do creepy shit, it's like that's like you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be innocent, and like naive. But when you're like saying weird shit to me, when you're like speaking like backwards, that's fucked up. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to.
When you're telling me about your new imaginary friend, Mr. Boogie, and how he's standing behind me and watching me at all times.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not. Stop. Don't do that. Like if a kid was like, my imaginary friend told me to kill you, and then like pulls out a knife, like, what's it gonna do? I could probably win a fight against a 10-year-old with a pistol. I mean, children have a pretty limitless capacity to be creepy, but threatening? No.
Sure.
No.
But why are children creepy in movies? Is it just because horror movies have spun them?
Subversion.
Yeah, they've spun something that's usually nice and innocent into something scary, and that's like been so successful that's been repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah, because they're not supposed to be. Like adults in real life can be scary, but children are supposed to be, like I said, like this paragon of innocence and naivety. So it's weird when they're like, you're gonna die on March 10th, 2090 or 2025, and it's like, oh fuck, that's in less than 2 years. And obviously, the word of a child, the future predictions of a child should mean nothing to me. But like, why did he say that? Like, why did the kid say that?
See, if we look at the Grady twins out of context here, like if you've never seen The Shining and you see this picture, like would you not just think it's kind of cute? This is nice.
Yeah,
like whose daughters are these?
Yeah, wow, matching dresses. That's adorable.
Yeah, like this is adorable. But like in the context of the movie, this shit is scary.
I don't know. Those foreheads are kind of scary either way.
That's true. They're a little odd looking kids, but
it's a low blow. I feel bad.
I mean,
I feel
could
bad
like
now.
Somebody opened up their wallet and showed me like, oh, these are my daughters. I'd be like, oh, that's nice. All right, next up, the black guy always dies.
This is one of the biggest horror movie cliches, but also similar to the sex leads to death cliche. I feel like I see less of this.
Right, because we're getting more directors of color in horror movies. Unfortunately, as if black people didn't have it hard enough, like they can't even catch a break in horror movies and they're always dying first. Or
this is a
maybe
weird
not
one
necessarily
to me.
first, but they hardly make it to the end. I think it's because they're too rational.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of movies, the black guy is always like the audience stand-in or the comic relief character. And they usually are
Yeah.
like, when something goes wrong, they're like, no, I'm
gotta
done with
leave.
this. And all
I
the
don't
white
wanna be
people are
here.
like, I want to go check it out. And he's like, no. So they got to take that guy out of the picture as soon as possible so that the
'Cause
white
he would
people
get rid of
can
the
make
threat.
bad decisions.
Get rid of the voice of reason.
Yeah.
The only non-white person.
I mean, I guess if the rational voice of reason, voice of the audience was any other character, they'd probably want to do the same. But for some reason, that role always seems to fall on the black actor.
But this one always didn't really make sense to me because I don't know where it comes from. Like what started this trend of like the black guy dies first? Because everyone knows that trend. Like everyone knows that cliche.
Was this some kind of racist, like, fan service?
See, that's my thing. That's my first thought. Did it have sort of like more nefarious and racist roots where it's just like the black guy dies first because because we're racist.
We don't like him.
Yeah.
And we know
Or
our
was
audience
it-
wants to see this black guy die first. It will be
Yeah, or was it something that just kind of like happened on accident, like once, and it snowballed out of control? Like I saw a while back. I saw a trailer for a documentary about like the influence of African American culture on horror, and they like mentioned this trope in the trailer. I never watched. I should have watched the documentary so I could say more than just like I saw a trailer.
So we're definitely moving away from this, fortunately. And we're getting protagonists who are, not just white people in the horror world.
Yeah, it's probably rooted in racism. I can't imagine that it would be something else. I can't imagine that like this is a trope born out of kindness.
I mean,
I just
like I said before, the only other explanation I can think of is that the black character was always the voice of reason, and they just happened to need to get rid of that character early.
I like that explanation better, but it's probably not the true one. To be fair, I mean I like that one better, but
It definitely looks bad if that is the case.
yes.
Okay, this is our last one, and this is going to be kind of a twofer. This is continue to live in a cabin in the woods or an obviously haunted house when shit starts to go down, or hearing a noise and saying, it's probably nothing.
If my house was like demonstrably haunted, I'm out. If I heard a noise, I would never be like, "Oh, it was probably what? It was probably the wind."
There's so much
The
of this
wind
in
made that
movies
noise.
where...
The wind made that low-toned, obviously human mode.
Uh-huh.
Be fucking for real. I've never even heard the wind make a sound that wasn't like windy sound. Like the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When have you ever heard the wind make a sound that was like not whooshing?
I mean, if you move into a new house and a new
the
to
house
you
is
house
settling.
and the house
Whatever.
is old, you don't know what kind of weird noises it's going to make, what the pipes are like. There's a lot of this in movies because they have to slowly ramp up tension. So at first it'll be something small that's like kind of explainable, and they'll say, oh, whatever, that's just fine.
Here.
But it continues to happen and happen, and there's always seems to be at least one character who's in total denial, who will see like the most haunted, spooky ass, unexplainable shit and just be like, no, that's bullshit. I don't believe
It's
in
always
that.
the gaslighting the fuck out of this.
Yeah, a
wife.
lot of times it's the husband or the boyfriend or whatever.
Have you seen Insidious?
Yeah, definitely.
She's like, yeah, our son is possessed, and he's just like, I'm not doing this. You're fucking crazy. You're dumb as shit.
Yeah,
You're
like
wrong.
I gotta
I'm
go to
not
work in the
entertaining this."
morning. This is bullshit.
Yeah,
You keep this
I'm
haunted
a
shit to
business
yourself.
dad. I gotta do business.
Yeah.
I can play and feign ignorance to a certain extent, to a pretty generous extent, honestly. I'm great at being in denial about things. But like the second one of my doors not closes, but slams shut on its own, that's all it takes. That's all I'm going to need to understand that there are some nefarious spirits.
Yeah, I mean, some haunted ass shit will happen in these movies, or they'll see like a ghostly figure or some totally unexplainable thing, and they'll just continue to stay there. Like,
Yeah,
that's probably just like a
I hate
one-off
that shit.
occurrence.
Exactly. Like, I'm okay with people making mistakes, but I want their mistakes to be believable.
Well, that leads nicely into our next little section here, and this is about movies that knowingly subvert these cliches. So I picked 5 movies that we can discuss, and these are movies that are aware of all the tropes and cliches of horror, and they take those and they spin them against the audience, and they're all the better for it. So these are all pretty great movies. And you can shout these out if you've seen them before. First one is
I actually
Tucker
have
and Dale
not
versus
seen-
Evil.
I actually have not seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
So this is a subversion of the whole teens go to a cabin in the woods, it's secluded, and murderous hillbillies come out and take them down one by one and terrorize them.
Yes.
So in this movie, you got the whole setup of the, college kids going to a cabin to party in a secluded area. And then you've got Tucker and Dale, who are just totally two nice, innocent, kind-hearted, couldn't hurt a fly kind of guys. And
Yes.
through a series of mishappenings and misinterpretations of their actions, all the teenagers are convinced that they're murderers.
Nice.
There's some kind of accident in the movie where one of them is killed, and they all suspect that it's them. And, just through, this is a comedy movie, by the way, also.
Yes.
But through a series of mishaps with all the teens, they end up killing themselves out of just because of their overwhelming fear of these people. And it just keeps, they're covered in blood after trying to save somebody or after an accident. And the other people see that and they assume the worst. And one of the students goes missing, and they are nursing her back to health, and they assume oh my God, they've got our friend. We need to fight back against them.
Nice.
And it's just a total subversion of that trope of murderous hillbillies. What if the murderous guys out in the woods actually did nothing wrong? And you're seeing the movie from their perspective, and all the terrible things that happen are just a result of the victims overreacting and getting themselves killed. Next up, do you recognize this one? This is Jess from You're Next, is a home invasion slasher movie where Jess here is invited to her boyfriend's rich parents' house for a big family gathering, and they get invaded by a bunch of masked killers, and they're getting in there, they're violently murdering all the members of the family one by one, but little do they know Jess was raised in some kind of prepper environment, and she came prepared to this. And she ends up being not just competently fighting back against killers, but she becomes the danger in this movie to the point where the killers are threatened by her. Yeah, this is easily one of my favorite slasher movies, and it's not really a comedic movie. It's subversive in that way.
Yeah.
But it's not super played for laughs or anything. This is genuinely just Jess being a total badass that nobody knew. And it totally flips on the killers where they're being hunted by her by the end. And she makes all the good decisions that you usually yell at people for in movies.
Hell yeah.
She's doing all the right things because she just came prepared. She knows what to do in a situation like this. Next up, you recognize this one?
I do. I love this movie.
This is probably the king.
Yeah, it's probably at least the most popular.
Yeah, of subversive horror movies, but this is The Cabin in the Woods.
I think the thing about this one is rather than taking tropes and sort of using them for comedic effect, this movie is it's a very, very direct way of doing it. They're literally saying we are in control of all of not only sort of this tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement of hey, this is a horror movie thing, but funny. It's no, we are literally making horror movies essentially. We are in control of every single trope possible.
Yeah, for context, in this movie, there's an organization that is running the entire show behind the scenes and making them make all the bad decisions, and they're unleashing the monsters and all that. And they're a nice office setting. Everybody's wearing ties and stuff.
So
and
calculated.
Yeah, they've got to reach their deadline of making all these people die. Now, this movie is definitely tied for being subversive with the next one, Scream. So this movie it's unique in the sense that all the characters are aware of horror movie tropes. They live in a universe where Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees all exist, and they're all fully aware of them. And the premise of this movie, and there are even people in the movie who are big horror fans. So basically, this movie is what if characters who are aware of horror tropes were in their own horror slasher movie? How would they react? And one of the most subversive things in this movie is, what's her name here on screen? But she's a big actress, and she was probably in the promotional materials, and you see her in the intro, and you think she's the main character. They wouldn't just put a big actress like her in the movie just to kill her off in the first scene.
Yeah, they would, get their money's worth.
Right, and of course that's what they do. They have her killed in the opening scene very violently, and then they move on to a new character. So you're totally not expecting her to die early in the movie. You're expecting she's being set up as the main character here. So they definitely pull the rug right away in that sense. And lastly, we've got Get Out.
I would say it's probably the least intentionally subversive movie out of all of these. I think that subversion was definitely something Jordan Peele had in mind. Like Cabin in the Woods is super, super funny if you're a big horror fan, you're familiar with all of these tropes. But if you're not really familiar with it, then it kind of loses some of the intent. It's still a good movie, but it loses intent. It loses intention. With Get Out, I don't really like look at this movie and I'm like, that's super, super subversive.
Yeah, this movie's got a lot of great social commentary built in. Really, the idea of the rich white family hijacking black people's bodies for their own nefarious deeds is obviously just a big allegory for like slavery. Everybody's racist, but not in like a I hate black people kind of way. It's more of a way where like they all admire him so much. And in the end, they end up like bidding for him.
It's not even like just slavery either. It's also this sort of misplaced admiration. You know, it's a dehumanizing thing, having a very direct way. You know, being the takeover of their body, to sort of explain how racism like permeates through society in more subtle ways.
Mm-hmm. They just have this idea of, well, what if we could take the mind of a white man and the physical body of a black man and combine them? We could have like the ultimate being. Let's take both of our strengths and put them together. You know,
it is a crazy concept.
Right.
It's nuts.
Not knowing that that's just like profiting off the labors of other people and exploiting them.
Not knowing that it's just like wrong. Like we're doing an okay thing here.
And I love that scene where when the main character is about to get body swapped with the blind guy, where he says, I don't care what color you are. I just want your eyes.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you.
He's like, I'm not
Whatever.
Racist. You know, I don't care that you're black. It's not about that.
Exactly.
I just
want your eyes for photography.
Yeah.
And your actual eyes and your literal eyes, your physical eyes.
Yeah, this is just a movie that came onto the horror movie scene very unexpectedly from Jordan Peele and just kind of shook it up quite a lot. I'll just take a moment to cite our sources. So a lot of these entries were taken from articles I found online. So those being 20 horror movie cliches that made us cringe so hard from HalloweenAlley.ca, 11 most overused cliches in scary movies from MovieWeb.com, 44 horror movie cliches that you'll notice next time you watch these movies from BoredPanda.com.
That's a lot.
Well, I clearly didn't take all 44.
Yeah, but see, I can imagine doing 30 more of these.
What
the fuck?
I had to pick out the ones I thought would make the best discussion points.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your effort put into making sure this is a good show.
And lastly, 17 cliches that always happen in horror movies from BuzzFeed.com. So, this has been The Long Couch. I'm Carl.
I'm Mel.
Thank you for watching. We will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.